Okay, this is part 5 on the Philco 52T1802. Hopefully this will be this could be the last installment of this restoration. What we're looking at now is the finished right side of the split chassis set. With all the can caps are now restuffed. All the caps on the bottom of the chassis have been replaced. I've repopulated the tubes. The only thing I've got really left to do on this is, I had to order some of these up. There's a little plastic strip similar to this one right here. It needs to go right here and hold this high voltage anode lead up. But other than that, after I do a quick continuity check, which I'm going to do right now, what I've got is my multimeter connected to where the interlock power cord would go. And what we're going to do is turn on the power right now. We have no resistance, but when we turn this on, even though this chassis is not all the way connected up to the rest of the set, I should get some resistance through this chassis, which is always a good sign that you haven't, that everything should be connected at least. It doesn't mean it's wired correctly. It just means that you have resistance. So yeah, getting like 5 ohms of resistance, 4.9. So that's good. So I can proceed with putting this part of the chassis back into the set. Then it'll be time to move on to the tuner and IF chassis, which I'll be basically doing the same thing as recapping that. And then hopefully we'll have a power up, and hopefully the set will work, and it'll just be a matter of adjustments and we can conclude this restoration. But it usually doesn't go that smooth, so we'll see what we get and do some troubleshooting. Before I move on to the tuner part of the chassis, I thought I would share this. This is pretty interesting. This is something a buddy of mine sent to me that knows that I'm working on these 52 Philcos. And what this is a sales brochure from 1952. There's actually 2 different ones, but this particular one here, it was a fold out. It's what this was. Something you might find like in a TV shop or a retail outlet that would have Philco TVs for sale. It's kind of interesting. Right here is the 20 inch Philco 2151. That right now my cabinet's being restored, but it's been electronically restored. So that was a mahogany veneer 20 inch console, has the Colorado tuner, ooh, and a built-in aerial, and the cabinet on casters. They also made a 2151L, and it was a blonde oak finish. And then they made a 2150 that had the super Colorado tuner. So apparently these two were probably a lower super value. Says it's a super value 20 inch consoles. This model is probably identical with the exception of having the Colorado tuner. Those were 20 inches, and the biggest sets it appears that they were offering was the 21 inch. And looks like all the 21 inches came with the Super Colorado tuner, and then I guess these had doors on them. Can't see any real difference there, but then you go on down, they have these 21-inch no glare tabletop sets, and right there is the 1802. They had a 1820 that actually looks more like my set. My set has this Philco logo here. It doesn't have that, but it's definitely the 1802. Lowest price ever for a 17-inch Philco TV. Has the Colorado tuner. And this one has the Super Colorado tuner, so I'm not really sure what the difference was there. Looks like those two sets are identical. They've got the brass pieces that hold the safety glass on. So anyway, it looks like they had about 6 different models. Then on the back, they talk about the Philco consoles all have casters, so you can move the TV around. This is talking about the Super Colorado tuner. What have we got here? Oh, here we go. It's the new Super Colorado tuner. Greater efficiency, ultra sensitive circuit, reduction of snow, improves reception in all locations. Here's this balance beam. They keep talking about this balance beam, no blur, no smear. Then there's the electronic built-in aerial. My cabinet version has that. My tabletop version does not. It talks about you can install UHF. So, kind of interesting. The other interesting thing is there's a whole nother set of model numbers on this green one. The only thing I see really different on this one is they've got this complete remote control. It's not wireless, but a crude early version of what we take for granted today, remote control on a TV. And then this appears to be a magazine ad from 1952. Robert Montgomery says, finest picture he's ever seen. I had no idea. Oh, NBC Today, NBC TV Mondays. I have no idea who that cat is. This is a picture of the balance beam chassis with the ultra sensitive Colorado tuner. I've never seen a chassis that looks like that out of a Philco, but I haven't had that many. Talks about the no blur, no smear. Anyway, thought that was kind of cool. Something to look at. Very definitely interesting what their marketing did, what they deemed was really cool, like this built-in antenna, the Super Colorado tuner. Reception was a big deal, I guess, back then, not like today with the cable that we have. Perfect pictures, no reception issues. It's definitely a problem back then, especially people that lived out in rural areas. Okay. Okay, here's a look at the RF side of the chassis. And as you can see here, here's the tuner. That's the Colorado tuner, as we learned from the marketing literature that we looked at. It's not the super Colorado tuner. Not sure what the difference is, except maybe there's a feedback circuit or something like that that consists of a couple of capacitors or something. Probably as simple as that. This is the channel indicator light, and here's where the antenna feed connection comes in, and then this is the connection to the CRT. I've actually got one of this green wire here. This broke off. I'm going to have to open that up and solder that back in. And then this is the connection cable that goes to the power chassis. It connects like this. So not much to this chassis. On this side there is one electrolytic can. This is a 4-part electrolytic, so I have to have that restuffed. And then the channel knob and the brightness and contrast control. And then here's just a quick look at the underside of the chassis. You can see there's a lot of bumblebees, black beauties, whatever you want to call them, in there. There's a resistor down there, power resistor, that needs to be checked. This is an electrolytic here. But there are several caps, several resistors, and then this shield here, I'll have to take it off too. I can't remember, I think there's a few caps under there, but mostly resistors. That just unscrews right here. So anyway, when I come back, hopefully I've had all this work completed as far as the caps and a good cleanup on this chassis. We'll have the tubes populated, and hopefully we'll be ready for a power up. So when I come back, hopefully I'll have all that work done. Okay, now I'm done with the left side of the split chassis, the RF chassis. Got the tubes populated back in. Still got the shield from the bottom off. Just take a quick peek at the underside work that's completed. As you can see, I've replaced all the black beauty caps, black bombs some people call them, because they have a tendency to blow up, and all the wax caps. There's one electrolytic there, a 2 microfarad electrolytic, and then of course down here I ran into a little bit of a problem with that 4-section cap where I didn't have enough room to put all the electrolytics in. So I've got one tacked in to the bottom there. Also, you can see those brightly colored wires. That's wiring that I replaced. That was really brittle and in bad shape. So, but overall, not too bad. I had to replace a few resistors in this chassis, but a lot of the resistors were in pretty good shape. So what I'm getting ready to do now is reinstall this into the cabinet, hook it up to the other chassis, and we'll be ready for first power up. Okay, so got both chassis reinstalled, and we're ready for the first power up. Go ahead and turn the set on, and there we go with the chassis reinstalled, both chassis. the duplex chassis, as I learned from the Philco information literature. I've always referred to this as a split chassis design, but according to Philco, it is a duplex chassis. So I'm going to change my vocabulary on these old Philcos to now calling them duplex chassis. How we're going to do this is it is plugged into the variac and isolation transformer. And we're going to bring this up slowly on the variac, and hopefully we'll have no smoking or popping. I'm pretty confident. I'm not going to use the dim bulb tester. I'm pretty confident since all the electrolytics have been changed, the transformer is good. Unless a cap is miswired, I think there's very little chance that we would have a short out. I've double and triple checked those connections. So anyway, the set's turned on. I'm going to go ahead and fire up the variac here. And we're going to take it up to about 50 volts. And see if we see any signs of life. So at 50 volts I can hear the power coming in, but I'm not seeing any tubes lighting up. No smoke. That's a good thing. Smoke is never good. Alright. Taking it up to about, we're right at about 80 volts. And I'm seeing some tubes lighting. Okay, good. Hear that flyback going. We got filament voltage on the picture tube. And as expected, no raster yet, no sound. Okay. Alright. Going to 110. And it sounds like we got high voltage. I'm not seeing any sign of life from the picture tube yet. Looks like everything's lit up there. And no raster. And no sound. Volume's up. Okay. Oh yeah, we got high voltage. Turning the width control, which would put more drive onto that picture tube. And I can definitely hear the high voltage. Make sure I get this set in the middle. Oh yeah, you can hear that. Alright, so going to about 117 volts. So the good news is it looks like the chassis is stable. Bad news is we have no raster, and we should definitely have a raster and some sound, and we have nothing. So what I'm going to do, I can hear that high voltage, so I know we've got high voltage. It's just a matter of how much. We're going to take the old high voltage probe and put it in here. Yeah, right at about 9,000 volts. Adjust the width. And 10,000 kV. That's certainly enough to fire a raster. It's supposed to have, for this tube, 11,000 is optimum. So, okay, well, now comes the fun part of any TV restoration, troubleshooting. Why do we have no sound, no picture, possible tuner, possible yoke problem, could have voltage problems on the pins. We got a great glow there. This tube actually tested really well. I could smell that Corona smell though. High voltage is definitely present, but we have no sound and no raster. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, this part of the troubleshoot, we know we have high voltage and ample high voltage to produce a raster, and we should be getting some signs of life out of the sound and out of that tuner. And could be that we have a problem with the tuner, but that still, we should still be seeing a raster, I would think. So what I'm going to do now is just check B+. I think B+ on this TV, if I remember right, is 300. I'm sorry, 230 volts. Coming right off that power supply. Now that's not going to tell me everything, but it is at least going to be. I at least want to confirm that the B+ on the TV is right. So here we go. We're firing it up, and we're at 285, 287. That should start to come down, and it is. That's good. That's normal. And so, yeah, we're right about where we need to be. We right at 227 volts, 8 volts short, so that's acceptable. So yeah, 227 volts, and we are just getting no signs of life at all. Sound, CRT is completely dead. Brightness, get the brightness all the way up. No static or sound out of that tuner at all. Okay. Alright, so the next step, I'll be getting voltage measurements on the pins to the CRT to make sure that that we've got the right voltages coming through there. And then after I take a look at that, start thinking about that tuner, and then the circuits associated with that tuner. Okay, so continuing the troubleshooting on this TV, and it just came to me, I need to admit to myself that sometimes I can be not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I want to let you know what I've done since the last segment of the film. I went through and did a test on all of the picture tube pins and the voltages are coming out fine. So in other words, what the chassis is producing connected to the CRT, what the chassis is producing here, and voltages going onto these pins, is all within, they're fine. I've got 6.5 volts on the filament. This is 6.3 picture tube. On pin 11, I'm supposed to get 70 volts. I got 77.5 on pin 2, 40 volts. I'm getting 31.7. And on pin 10, I'm supposed to get 36 volts. Or I'm sorry, pin 2, I'm supposed to get 40 volts. I'm getting 26. And on pin 10, I'm supposed to get 36, and I'm getting 31.7. So those voltages are slightly low. The other thing that I did was pulled the yoke cable and got out my ring tester, and I've got it connected to the complete coil. And this unit will just tell me, it's just a quick high Q inductive ring test. And as you can see, it appears that that coil inside that yoke should be in good shape. Now that doesn't mean that there's not a problem with that yoke, but it does mean that the coils are in good shape. So I did all this off camera, and I was sitting here staring at this set and thinking what my next troubleshooting step was going to be. And as I said just a minute ago, sometimes I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But one thing occurred to me that I could do, that I did, was I have a complete restored chassis setting out that I know plays well. It's just sitting here waiting for its cabinet to be completed by a friend of mine and be reinstalled and be up and running. So what I did was I took this chassis out, put this chassis in, connected it all up, and did a power up, and got the exact same result. No sound, no raster, high voltages present. So at this point, with the problem here, I have eliminated the tuner. So now I know that I've either got a problem with this yoke, or more likely I might have a problem with some of these pins. If you go back and look at my first look video of this Philco T1802, I had the CR71 out, or CR70 out, and did a test of this picture tube. And it looks like this picture tube is new, or newer, and not that old. And in fact, it did. I went back and looked at the video, and it tested like a brand new picture tube. So one thing that I could have going on here is bad solder joints in there. But one thing's for certain, when I do get my cabinet back for this set, before I install that chassis back in, I'm going to take this chassis and put it into a knowing good picture tube as well as yoke, and fire this chassis up and see what happens. Also, in the meantime, I'll probably, after I get this chassis out, I'll probably pull this picture tube back out, retest it on the CR70 to make sure that I know what I know, and check these filaments. One thing that I did too was, because I know those of you that are watching that know what you're doing are going to say, hey, wait a minute, did you take this this magnet and move it around? And the answer to that is yes. It had no effect. That occurred to me after I turned the camera off, that hey, this magnet might need to be moved, and I tried it in every angle, and I also messed with this is basically a width sleeve. They call it a focus adjustment, but you can see there's a sleeve. In most TVs that's called a width sleeve. So I did a whole lot of combinations of both manipulating this as well as the ion trap magnet, and to no avail could I get a raster going. So that's one thing someone would very quickly point out, that hey, you didn't show us that you did that, but I did do that. So I think before I do anything else with a known good picture tube and yoke, and see what happens. But pretty sure it's my problem's right in here.